Everyone, I want to start by asking a simple question. What has being nice to men ever truly gotten us? For too long, women have been raised to prioritize politeness over power, patience over boundaries, and approval over self-respect. We are told to smile more, to soften our words, to make men comfortable even when it comes at our own expense. That women are conditioned from a young age to prioritize men's comfort over their own well-being, often without even realizing it. This conditioning is deeply ingrained in our upbringing, media, workplace dynamics, and even in our everyday social interactions. From childhood, girls are taught to be polite, accommodating, and agreeable, while boys are encouraged to be assertive, dominant, and unapologetic. This contrast creates an imbalance where women feel an obligation to be nice even when it is detrimental to their own needs, feelings, and self-respect. Consider how often women apologize for things that aren't their fault, soften their opinions to avoid being labeled as difficult, or laugh at jokes that make them uncomfortable just to avoid awkwardness. They are expected to be understanding, forgiving, and patient even when men exhibit behavior that's disrespectful or inconsiderate. This expectation forces women into a role where they feel guilty for asserting themselves or expressing frustration. Meanwhile, men are rarely held to the same standard of constant politeness or emotional labor. This conditioning plays out in many ways, particularly in the workplace. Women are more likely to take on extra tasks, provide emotional support, and deal with conflict resolution, all while receiving less recognition or compensation. If they refuse, they are often seen as cold or uncooperative, while a man in the same situation would be viewed as decisive and strong-willed. In relationships, women may find themselves over-explaining their feelings, excusing poor treatment, or tolerating toxic behavior in the name of keeping the peace. They might avoid confrontation because they fear being called dramatic, high maintenance, or aggressive, while men are rarely criticized for standing their ground. Being nice is often a one-sided expectation, and it ultimately benefits men more than women. When a woman prioritizes being liked over being respected, she unintentionally allows others to take advantage of her kindness. The truth is, society rewards men for being firm and direct, while women are expected to be submissive and accommodating. This dynamic reinforces inequality, making it harder for women to advocate for themselves without facing backlash. Breaking free from this condition means recognizing that niceness should not come at the cost of self-respect, boundaries, or emotional well-being. Women must reclaim their right to prioritize themselves without guilt or fear of how men might react. That being nice often means being taken advantage of, especially when it comes to emotional labor, patience, and tolerance. Women are often expected to be the nurturers, the caretakers, and the peacemakers in both personal and professional settings. This expectation is not just a passive cultural norm, but an active demand placed on women, whether it be in their homes, relationships, workplaces, or even social interactions. Women are expected to listen, to understand, to support, and to absorb the emotional burdens of those around them, especially men, without complaint or expectation of reciprocation. This leads to an exhausting cycle. Women are constantly giving while receiving little to nothing in return. Emotional labor is one of the most overlooked and undervalued forms of work that women do, often without recognition. In relationships, women are expected to be patient with men's emotional immaturity, to be the ones who fix them, and to provide endless support as they figure out their feelings. If a man struggles with communication, the woman is expected to guide him through it. If he is emotionally unavailable, the woman is expected to wait for him to be ready. If he behaves irresponsibly, she is expected to tolerate it with understanding and unconditional patience. This dynamic not only places an unfair burden on women, but also allows men to continue avoiding personal growth because they know they will be excused for it. The workplace is no different. Women are often expected to do the behind-the-scenes work that keeps teams running smoothly, from organizing events to managing conflicts and offering emotional support to colleagues. They are expected to soften their tone, phrase their emails gently, and cushion their criticisms so they do not come across as too harsh. Meanwhile, men are allowed to be blunt, direct, and unapologetic without fear of being labeled as difficult. When a woman refuses to take on this extra emotional labor, she is often met with resistance, accused of being unfriendly or not a team player. The result? Women work twice as hard, not only doing their assigned tasks, but also managing the emotions of those around them, all while their male counterparts enjoy the freedom to focus solely on their own success. This imbalance leads to burnout, frustration, and ultimately resentment. Women are constantly giving, adjusting, and compromising while men benefit from a system that excuses their shortcomings. The reality is that patience, tolerance, and emotional labor should be a two-way street. But as long as women are expected to be nice at their own expense, they will continue to be drained by relationships, workplaces, and social structures that take more than they give. The more women recognize this pattern, the more they can begin to reclaim their time, energy, and emotional well-being by refusing to be the sole caretakers of other people's feelings. Saying no is power, yet many women struggle to do so because they have been taught that their value is tied to how much they accommodate others. From a young age, girls are conditioned to be agreeable, to go along with what others want, and to avoid conflict at all costs. This leads to a deep-rooted fear of disappointing people, especially men. Women feel pressure to say yes even when they don't want it because they worry about being seen as rude, selfish, or difficult. However, this constant need to say yes comes at a significant personal cost. It often means sacrificing time, energy, and even personal values just to keep the peace or to avoid making others uncomfortable. One of the biggest reasons women struggle to say no is because they fear the consequences. When a man hears no, he often sees it as negotiable, pushing boundaries until he gets the answer he wants. In dating, this can mean pressuring women into situations they are uncomfortable with, whether it's going on a date they don't want, engaging in conversations that cross personal boundaries, or even tolerating behavior that is outright disrespectful. In the workplace, women are often expected to take on extra work, stay late, or accept responsibilities outside their job description, all because they feel they can't say no without facing backlash. A man who sets boundaries is seen as confident and authoritative. A woman who does the same is seen as difficult and uncooperative. The truth is, saying no is an act of self-preservation. It is a declaration that a woman's time, energy, and emotional well-being are just as valuable as anyone else's. It is not rude, it is not selfish, and it is not aggressive, it is necessary. Women need to understand that they are not responsible for making everyone happy, and they do not owe their time and energy to anyone just because it is expected of them. The more women embrace the power of saying no, the more they reclaim control over their lives and refuse to be manipulated by societal expectations that demand their constant availability and compliance. Respect should be earned, not given freely, yet women are often expected to offer it automatically, regardless of whether a man has done anything to deserve it. Society conditions women to defer to men, to assume they are competent, trustworthy, and worthy of admiration simply by virtue of their gender. From a young age, girls are taught to be polite, to respect authority figures who are often male, and to accommodate the needs and desires of men without question. Meanwhile, men are not taught to extend the same courtesy. They are not expected to automatically respect women. Instead, women are forced to prove their worth, intelligence, and competence at every turn. This imbalance creates a world where men receive unearned respect, while women must constantly fight to be taken seriously. This dynamic is evident in every aspect of life, from personal relationships to professional environments. In the workplace, men are often assumed to be competent until proven otherwise, while women are scrutinized and doubted from the start. A man can walk into a meeting and be taken seriously simply because of his presence, while a woman has to work twice as hard to earn the same level of respect. She must prove her knowledge, her expertise, and her ability over and over again, while a man's confidence alone is often enough to command attention. Women who do not immediately offer deference to male colleagues or bosses are often labeled as difficult or arrogant, while men who demand respect are seen as natural leaders. In relationships, this expectation plays out in the way women are encouraged to be patient, understanding, and forgiving of men's shortcomings, often at their own expense. They are told to give him time, help him grow, or see the best in him, even when he has done little to deserve such devotion. Women are expected to respect a man's opinions, emotions, and decisions, even when he does not extend the same courtesy to them. If a woman challenges a man, questions his choices, or refuses to automatically defer to him, she is often met with hostility, accusations of being disrespectful, or even outright aggression. The idea that men are entitled to respect simply because they exist is a dangerous one, as it allows them to evade accountability and encourages women to tolerate mistreatment in the name of being nice. This societal expectation needs to be dismantled. Respect should not be an automatic gift handed out based on gender. It should be something that is earned through actions, character, and integrity. Women must recognize that they are under no obligation to respect a man who has not demonstrated that he deserves it. They do not owe their deference, admiration, or compliance to anyone who treats them poorly, speaks down to them, or refuses to see them as equals. By challenging this expectation, women reclaim their right to demand mutual respect in all aspects of life rather than simply giving it away without question. Confidence is far more valuable than niceness, yet women are often discouraged from embracing it. From an early age, girls are taught that being liked is more important than being assertive. They are encouraged to be agreeable, to avoid confrontation, and to make sure that everyone around them feels comfortable, even at their own expense. Meanwhile, boys are praised for being bold, outspoken, and self-assured. This difference in social conditioning results in a world where women are constantly second-guessing themselves while men move through life with an inherent sense of entitlement and self-confidence. The problem with prioritizing niceness over confidence is that it weakens women's ability to advocate for themselves. A woman who is too concerned with being liked will hesitate to ask for a raise, challenge unfair treatment, or assert her needs in relationships. She will downplay her achievements so she doesn't come across as arrogant, apologize unnecessarily to avoid seeming rude, and hesitate to express strong opinions for fear of making others uncomfortable. Meanwhile, men are encouraged to be confident and self-assured, knowing that their assertiveness will be rewarded rather than punished. Women who exhibit the same traits are often labeled as aggressive, bossy, or difficult, which pressures them to tone down their confidence in order to be more likable. This double standard is particularly damaging in professional settings, where confidence is often the key to success. A woman who is too nice will be overlooked, underestimated, and undervalued, while a man with half her qualifications but twice her confidence will be promoted ahead of her. Studies have shown that men apply for jobs even when they meet only a fraction of the qualifications, while women tend to hold back unless they meet every requirement perfectly. This hesitancy stems from the fact that women are conditioned to believe they must be flawless to be taken seriously, while men are taught that confidence alone can carry them forward. The reality is that competence is important, but confidence is what makes people take notice. The same pattern appears in personal relationships. Women who prioritize niceness over confidence often find themselves in situations where their needs are ignored, their voices are dismissed, and their boundaries are violated. They may stay in unhealthy relationships longer than they should because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings. They may avoid difficult conversations because they fear being perceived as too demanding. They may settle for less than they deserve simply because they don't want to seem too much. But confidence changes everything. A confident woman knows her worth. She speaks up without apologizing, sets boundaries without guilt, and walks away from situations that do not serve her. She understands that her value is not dependent on how much she pleases others, but on how much she believes in herself. Women must learn to prioritize confidence over niceness if they want to break free from the cycle of being overlooked and underestimated. Confidence does not mean being rude or arrogant. It means knowing what you bring to the table and refusing to shrink yourself to make others more comfortable. It means trusting your instincts, speaking with authority, and standing firm in your beliefs. When women stop worrying about being liked and start focusing on being respected, they unlock a level of power that society has tried to keep from them for far too long. Niceness does not protect women the way they are often led to believe. Many women are taught that if they are polite, accommodating, and agreeable, they will be treated well in return. They are told that being too assertive will make them a target, that challenging authority will bring negative consequences, and that keeping the peace is the best way to avoid conflict. But the harsh reality is that being nice does not guarantee safety, fairness, or respect. In many cases, it does the opposite. It makes women more vulnerable to being dismissed and even mistreated. In professional settings, being nice often means being overlooked. A woman who is too nice will hesitate to speak up in meetings, avoid pushing back against unfair treatment, and refrain from negotiating for better opportunities because she does not want to seem demanding. She will do extra work without recognition, accept being interrupted without protest, and watch less qualified men get ahead while she remains stuck in the same position. Niceness, rather than protecting her, ensures that she remains invisible. In relationships, being nice often leads to being taken for granted. Women who are too accommodating end up carrying the emotional burden of the relationship while their partners contribute little in return. They tolerate bad behavior, give endless second chances, and make excuses for disrespectful treatment, all in the hope that their kindness will eventually be appreciated. But the truth is, people do not value what they do not have to work for. A woman who is always nice, always forgiving, and always available will be seen as someone who can be walked over without consequence. Even in situations of personal safety, niceness can be dangerous. Many women have found themselves in uncomfortable or even threatening situations because they were too afraid to be rude. They have entertained unwanted conversations, that they drinks they did not want, or gone along with plans they were uncomfortable with because they feared that saying no would escalate the situation. They have smiled through discomfort, laughed at inappropriate jokes, and stayed quiet when they should have spoken up, all because they were taught that being nice was the best way to avoid trouble. The truth is, niceness is often a trap. It does not protect women, it only makes them easier to take advantage of. Women must learn that their safety, success, and well-being are worth more than the fleeting approval of others. They must stop prioritizing being nice and start prioritizing being respected, because in the end, respect is what truly matters. Women are often conditioned to believe that their self-worth is tied to their ability to accommodate others, particularly men. From an early age, they are taught to be nurturing, agreeable, and easygoing, even when it comes at their own expense. They learn to suppress their own needs and desires in favor of making others comfortable, to prioritize harmony over honesty, and to avoid confrontation at all costs. This conditioning is so deeply ingrained that many women don't even realize they are doing it. They brush off rude comments, laugh at jokes that make them uncomfortable, and allow themselves to be interrupted or talked over because they have been trained to believe that their role is to make social interactions smooth and pleasant for everyone except themselves. This pattern plays out in all aspects of life. In professional settings, women are expected to take on the emotional labor of the workplace, smoothing over conflicts, remembering birthdays, planning office events, and being the ones who listen to colleagues' personal problems. If they refuse, they are seen as cold or unfriendly, while their male counterparts are never expected to take on these roles in the first place. Women are also expected to tolerate being talked over, having their ideas dismissed, or being given less credit than they deserve. If they push back, they are labeled as aggressive, while men who behave the same way are seen as confident and assertive. In relationships, the expectation to accommodate manifests in an even more extreme way. Women are expected to be patient with their partners, to overlook flaws, and to provide emotional support even when they receive little in return. They are encouraged to lower their standards, to forgive repeated offenses, and to see the potential in a man rather than judging him based on his actual actions. This is why so many women find themselves stuck in one-sided relationships where they are doing all the work, planning dates, managing household responsibilities, and offering endless emotional labor while their partner simply benefits from their efforts. The constant pressure to be understanding and forgiving means that women often ignore red flags, dismiss their own instincts, and allow their boundaries to be crossed again and again. But this need to accommodate doesn't just affect careers and relationships, it affects personal safety as well. Women are taught that rejecting a man too harshly might lead to aggression, so they default to politeness even when they feel uncomfortable. They smile at strangers who make them uneasy, entertain conversations they don't want to have, and pretend to be interested just to avoid the risk of upsetting someone. This is not just about being nice, it is about survival. Many women have been in situations where they have chosen to be overly polite to avoid the risk of violence. even though they had every right to walk away or speak up for themselves. The problem with this endless cycle of accommodation is that it does not benefit women. It only reinforces a system where they are expected to do all the emotional and mental labor while men get to take up space without consequence. Women must recognize that they do not owe anyone their time, energy, or patience, especially not at the cost of their own well-being. They must stop prioritizing other people's comfort over their own needs and start asserting themselves in every area of life. Because the truth is, accommodating everyone else will never lead to happiness. It will only lead to exhaustion and resentment. Many women have been raised to believe that confrontation is something to be avoided at all costs. They are taught that being agreeable is a virtue, that keeping the peace is more important than speaking the truth, and that expressing their frustrations will only make them seem difficult or dramatic. This fear of confrontation is not an accident. It is a learned behavior designed to keep women in a position of submission. Because as long as women are afraid to challenge the status quo, they will continue to accept less than they deserve. The reality is that confrontation is not inherently negative. It is not about being rude, mean, or aggressive. It is about standing up for yourself, asserting your boundaries, and refusing to be disrespected. However, society has conditioned women to believe that any form of directness is a flaw rather than a strength. This is why women so often downplay their needs, soften their language, and phrase their thoughts in a way that makes them more palatable to others. They hesitate before sending a strongly worded email, add unnecessary apologies to their sentences, and avoid addressing issues head-on, all because they have been taught that being too assertive will make them unlikable. This aversion to confrontation is especially harmful in the workplace, where women are already at a disadvantage. They fear speaking up when they are being overlooked, underpaid, or disrespected, because they know that pushing back can lead to professional consequences. Studies have shown that women who negotiate for higher salaries are perceived more negatively than men who do the same, which discourages them from advocating for themselves. But avoiding confrontation does not solve the problem. It only ensures that nothing changes. In personal relationships, the fear of confrontation keeps women in situations that are harmful to them. They tolerate behavior they should not accept, avoid difficult conversations that need to be had, and suppress their emotions in order to keep the other person happy. They worry that addressing issues will make them seem too demanding, so they stay silent, hoping that things will improve on their own. But in reality, problems do not go away just because they are ignored. If anything, they become worse. The truth is, confrontation is a necessary skill. It is what allows people to set boundaries, demand better treatment, and challenge injustice when they see it. Women must learn that their voices matter, that they have the right to express their opinions without fear, and that their discomfort with confrontation is something they must unlearn. Because the more they avoid it, the more they allow others to take advantage of them. Confrontation is not the enemy, silence is. One of the biggest lies society tells women is that being liked is the most important thing they can achieve. Women are constantly encouraged to be likable, to fit into a certain mold, and to avoid doing anything that might make them stand out in a way that others disapprove of. They are pressured to be agreeable, to downplay their ambition, and to avoid making others feel uncomfortable with their success. But the truth is, chasing likability is a losing game, because no matter how hard a woman tries, there will always be someone who disapproves of her. The need to be like holds women back in countless ways. It stops them from pursuing leadership positions because they fear that being in power will make them unpopular. It stops them from setting boundaries because they don't want to upset anyone. It stops them from advocating for themselves because they worry about being labeled as demanding or selfish. But the reality is that likability should never be the goal. Respect should be. Women who prioritize being respected over being liked understand that their value does not come from how many people approve of them. They know that setting boundaries will upset some people, that standing up for themselves will make others uncomfortable, and that pursuing success will always invite criticism. But they do it anyway because they refuse to live their lives trying to please everyone except themselves. The truth is, women do not need to be liked to be successful, to be happy, or to be fulfilled. They need to be confident in who they are, firm in what they believe, and unafraid to take up space in a world that wants them to shrink. Because at the end of the day, being respected is far more powerful than being liked. And once women stop chasing approval, they will finally be freed out. Women are often taught that their greatest strength lies in their ability to be selfless. They are raised with the expectation that they must always put others first, whether it be family, friends, romantic partners, or colleagues. From a young age, they are conditioned to believe that being a good person means being accommodating, nurturing, and available at all times. They are told that their kindness will be rewarded, that their willingness to sacrifice will be appreciated, and that their role in life is to support and uplift those around them. But in reality, this constant selflessness does not lead to happiness or fulfillment. It leads to exhaustion, resentment, and a life where their own needs are constantly pushed aside. The problem with this expectation is that it is not equally applied to men. Men are not raised to believe that they must constantly sacrifice for others. They are encouraged to be ambitious, to prioritize their own goals, and to put themselves first without guilt. While women are bending over backward to accommodate others, men are moving forward without hesitation. This creates a dynamic where women are expected to take care of everyone else, while men are free to focus on their own success. This expectation of selflessness is particularly evident in relationships. Women are encouraged to be patient, to give endless chances, and to be understanding even when their own needs are not being met. They are expected to be the ones who compromise, who adjust their schedules, and who take on the emotional labor of maintaining the relationship. They are often made to feel guilty for wanting more, for asking for equal effort, or for refusing to settle for less than they deserve. When a woman finally decides to put herself first, she is often met with criticism, told she is being selfish, demanding, or unreasonable. Meanwhile, men who prioritize themselves are seen as confident and independent rather than self-centered. In the workplace, women's selflessness is exploited. They are expected to take on additional tasks without question, to support their colleagues without recognition, and to always be available when needed. They are given responsibilities that go beyond their job descriptions, organizing events, mentoring younger employees, and maintaining the emotional well-being of the team, yet they are rarely compensated for this extra work. If they refuse, they are labeled as uncooperative or unfriendly, while men who set boundaries are respected for their assertiveness. The truth is, women cannot continue to live their lives solely for the benefit of others. Prioritizing oneself is not selfish, it is necessary. Women must learn to say no without guilt, to put their own needs on equal footing with those around them, and to understand that they are not responsible for everyone else's happiness. Their worth is not measured by how much they can give to others, but by how much they value themselves. Until women break free from the expectation of endless selflessness, they will continue to be overworked, underappreciated, and taken for granted. Women are often told that patience is a virtue, that good things come to those who wait, and that if they simply endure long enough, they will eventually be rewarded. This idea is deeply ingrained in society, and is particularly enforced when it comes to relationships with men. Women are encouraged to be patient with men who are emotionally unavailable, who struggle with commitment, who do not communicate properly, or who simply do not put in the same level of effort. They are told to wait it out, to give him time, and to support him through his growth. The underlying message is clear. Women must be patient while men take their time to figure things out, mature, and become better partners. But the reality is, patience in this context does not lead to better outcomes. It leads to wasted time, emotional exhaustion, and deep disappointment. Women are conditioned to believe that their love, support, and patience can transform a man. They are led to believe that if they wait long enough, if they give enough chances, if they endure enough struggles, they will eventually be rewarded with the relationship they deserve. But more often than not, this patience is never repaid. The truth is, people do not change unless they want to. Waiting indefinitely for a man to become emotionally mature, responsible, or committed is a gamble that rarely pays off. Many women find themselves investing years in relationships with men who never actually change, who continue to take them for granted, and who ultimately leave them drained. Meanwhile, those same men will often turn around and be everything their partner wanted just for someone else. This expectation of patience is not just present in romantic relationships, it extends to all aspects of life, including the workplace. Women are told to be patient for promotions, to wait their turn, to trust that their hard work will eventually be recognized. They are encouraged to remain loyal to companies that do not value them, to accept unfair treatment without complaint, and to believe that their efforts will one day be rewarded. But men are not given the same message. Men are encouraged to ask for raises, to demand promotions, to move on if they are not being treated fairly. While women are patiently waiting for recognition, men are actively seeking and securing better opportunities. The idea that patience will eventually lead to success is a dangerous one because it discourages women from taking control of their own lives. Instead of waiting for things to improve, women need to start setting standards, asserting their worth, and refusing to waste time on people or situations that do not serve them. Whether it's in relationships, careers, or personal growth, waiting around for things to change is rarely the answer. Women must recognize that they do not owe anyone unlimited patience, especially not at the cost of their own happiness. Instead of waiting for men to grow up, for employers to recognize their value, or for society to change, they must take action, set boundaries, and move forward with confidence. Because patience, when misplaced, does not lead to rewards, it leads to regrets. That women have spent far too long prioritizing the comfort of others at the expense of their own well-being. They have been taught to be patient, to be understanding, to tolerate, to accommodate, and to give endlessly, even when they receive little in return. But the time for that is over. It is not a woman's job to fix, to wait, or to endure. It is not her responsibility to shrink herself so that others can feel bigger, nor to sacrifice her happiness in the hopes that one day things will change. The truth is, nothing will change until women decide that they have had enough. Enough of being nice to men who do not deserve it. Enough of lowering their standards, making themselves smaller, and accepting less than they deserve. Enough of waiting for others to change instead of walking away. Women must reclaim their power by setting boundaries, demanding respect, and refusing to tolerate anything that does not serve them. Being kind and respectful should be a choice, not an obligation. Women do not owe men their patience, their silence, or their self-sacrifice. They owe themselves happiness, fulfillment, and the freedom to live life on their own terms. And that starts by recognizing that being nice at the cost of their own dignity is no longer an option. It is time to stop being nice to men and start being loyal to themselves.